अस्सलाम वालेकुम, मेरा नाम मारूफ ताज है और मैं को प्रेसिडेंट हूँ लम्स की सोसाइटी हम-आहंग का। आज मैं आप सबके साथ हूँ यहाँ पे हमारा मैनिफेस्टो शेयर करने के लिए, जिसका टाइटल है प्रोग्रेसिव ल्यूमिनाइट मैनिफेस्टो। बट यू ऑल्सो डिसअपॉइंटेड व्हेन योर एक्सपेक्टेशंस रिगार्डिंग लम्स वर shattered. When you came here, you felt that there is something unexpected in the air, something that's trying to tell you something. A breeze that's saying, "Oh dear friend, LUMS is not a safe space. It's not a safe space for religious and intellectual, gender and sexual, ethnic and cultural minorities. It's not a safe space for its own self, for its students and for the staff. And it's not a safe space for all of them, for us and you." We all were disappointed, witnessing how you cannot have a sacred space if you are a religious minority because the supreme followers think it's just a minor population. You cannot have an affordable restaurant because the supreme class can still afford others. You cannot identify as a non-hetero identity openly because the hetero imagines themselves to be the norm. You cannot have a differing opinion because the supreme discourse doesn't provide you that space. And finally, you cannot even raise your voice for the matters that don't affect the supreme but affect you because they think you are just exaggerating things. And yet, the religious supreme wants to be known as a tolerant group. The supreme class wants to be identified as anti-capitalist, and the supreme sex wants to be identified as a natural one. The supreme intellectuals think that all their cultural realities hold some intellectual value, and all of them think that everything is fine, all is well. In all this chaos, apart from a couple of individuals, we never come as a collective. We never come as a collective and pay heed to these important subjects, these subjects which dictate how a person of a different religion, gender, class, sexuality, ethnicity, and intellect experiences LUMS. And yet, it's truly a phenomena how the Supreme feels comfortable, deliberately unaware, in their carefully constructed social bubble when it comes to the very questions that affect all of us. It's not to deny that as a community, the LUMS body does support each other. It spends a lot on charity, truly hopes that somehow these issues literally vanish. However, the question is that for how long we'll stay merely in our comfort zones, commenting on social and political deterioration from the windows and benches of Khoka. For how long we'll keep witnessing the constant shrinking of any safe space that is there. For how long we'll have to wait to acknowledge that we and only we are the ones solely responsible for the situation we are in. Our wider Pakistani society is going through an extreme crisis that we all can see, but we decide to put our blinders on. We witness every day hundreds of cases of sexual violence, hundreds of cases of forced conveyance and religious discrimination, hundreds of cases of class discrimination, hundreds of cases of voices of dissent being shut through apparatuses like forced disappearances or even murder. And while you might not feel the direct influence of those on campus, they do influence it. They constantly shrink that space that we all cherish and are proud of. They constantly inform the air that we breathe and think in. While the blame of our current state can be easily put on the outside society, but then again, are we really just docile bodies who keep accepting whatever they are thrown into, who keep ignoring the waves that are coming to destroy us, who keep thinking about our individualistic benefits? Unfortunately, that seems to be the attitude from our silence, from our apolitical behavior, from the stubbornness to not change ourselves and draw our support for those who want to change, especially when they are in dire need of it. Where were we when the conference in Bangladesh was shut down? Where were we when the professor harassed students? Where were we when a woman administration member was harassed and was asked to keep her mouth shut? Where were we when the salaries of janitorial staff were not given, even when it was their Eid? Where were we when the session on subcontracting was interrupted? Where were we when the ex-institution figure was imposing dictator-like policies on students' mobility and conduct? Where were we when someone asked to ban music and dance, but no one still can freely identify as an LGBTQI community or Ahmadi or an atheist? So where were you? You were thinking that it's not your headache, and you're still thinking that it's not your headache. But then why shouldn't women say yes, fucking all men, when you have the audacity to think that it's not your headache? Why should the sexual minorities take any regard when you have the audacity to think that it's not your headache whether they are safe or not? Why shouldn't the ethnic minorities and lower class students defame your societies, which include only the same privileged students year after year? Why shouldn't the janitorial staff boycott you because You have the audacity to think that it's not your headache. Why shouldn't the religious minorities question you when you have the audacity to think that it's not your headache when even when you occupy all their space? Why shouldn't just all the oppressed groups get together and initiate a reformation? And even on the incidents where we did take notice, what did we accomplish? And on what cost? It took a huge sit in just to get an obviously misogynistic Facebook group banned. It took months of constant protest just so we could be heard on the issues of peace that affect all of us. It took huge Me Too movement just for us to realize how unsafe women are in this space. That's what what's this shrinking of space, safe space is. That in absence of institutionalization, it takes us sweat and blood to even get the basic points across. And we as a society are trying to bridge that gap. Presently, our society is operating in two parallel worlds. Both are friendly, lovely, and accommodating, but only to the self. Both are hostile, disrespectful, and insensitive to the other. Both imagine the self to be the perfect and the other to be a propaganda. Both have principles that we need as a society, but both want the other to change first. It's a high time that we start building ourselves as a community, neither by condemning, nor ignoring, nor compromising, but by truly acknowledging the other. Without acknowledgement, the atmosphere of oppression would remain stagnant and we believe it might even escalate. Acknowledging that our silence creates problems, our apolitical behavior makes life worse, our disregard towards the other leads to emotional and material chaos to Lum's body. And not just acknowledging but taking concrete steps, being part of protests, joining discussion circles, creating spaces for the others. We need to reevaluate our very notions of individualistic politics and think about the collective to create a diverse, harmonious, free, and tolerant society. And to take the first step, we invite you to join us on October 2nd to explore these ideas more and lay foundations for our agenda for the academic year of 2021 and 22. Thank you.